If Dad hear you right now cursing like that, he would have shoved your head down to the pool for good 15 minutes. They laugh. Mr. Kim didn't like to hear curses for anyone, so his children weren't allowed that too. Young rolled his eyes at his brother before saying, "Oh, but that old man is not here right now." He shrugged, and they shook his head. They talked, and Deong cracked a lame jokes, making him laugh. They know he was doing all that just to lift his mood, and it was working. They know his brother too well. He didn't hate his father, but he was scared of him. He would obey him. Behind his back, he would talk like that. Are you seriously 24? He laughed and groaned. Don't remind me of my age. In just 6 months, I will be married to some unknown woman. He wiped that weak tears of his. Right, Taekook. Just then his mind would drifted to a very touchy topic of his life. With a lump of his thought, he finally spilled a question. Do you know anything about Jungkook? They asked, biting his inside of his cheeks. The young eyes were ice cold at the name of his, and he huffed in anger. No, he spelled like a person of him. They, do you, do you still love him after all that he did to you? He grabbed his hand and squeezed it. The young position were at that question. Did he love him? No. Yes, maybe. He didn't fall out of love, but his feelings were not strong anymore. They were replaced by slightly hated, somehow. No, they shook his head, not wanting to give the young another reason to lecture him about. I never loved him. It was just my obsession. For a perfect husband. God, what life could be do though. They laughed. While his eyes became glossy, Deong noticed his condition and moved toward the side of him. Before hugged him for both sides. He didn't deserve you, I guess. It's God's sign for you to get away from him. He squeezed his shoulder and smiled. They smiled back at him and noted. A waitress will approach the table and ask for the bill, while eyeing his brother shamelessly. They smiled and watched his brother's side, himself to show off his arrogance. He raised his eyebrows at the waitress and gave him the bill with a face. The poor boy seems like he almost in his pants. When she left, they burst out in a giggle. Well, I'm not here. They poked him, and he glared at him. At least it didn't feel like living alone anymore. For the day, Jungkook promised he was true. For his fault, he didn't yell at him or ignore him like he didn't exist. They were going pretty well. They had continued to college for 1 week of marriage, and it had been normal. His friend didn't ask questions like why wasn't he happy or why he was back so early, but he dismissed them every time. In his family, marriage ceremonies were not too big, so friends were not invited. Only families were invited for the both side, so they could do his best friends were to explain anything. But he didn't want to tell him that he gained pity look for him. They didn't want that. In the past, when Jungkook had been cooperative to him and tried to be his best. They would eat together, have coffee, or even watch TV together. They both were still not at the stage of being friends. He would make small conversation also, and when they was tense, he was also annoyed. In no mood to talk, he would leave him alone to avoid any argument. In that small time, they realized how he was. He reminded himself all the time he wasn't also much of talker, but he was a good listener though. They also noticed that he was a serious sort of person with smile. In the past month, he might be smiled twice or thrice at this, or maybe that was because he didn't even know. Then perhaps it was more ongoing, and people he know. His aura was showed nothing else but arrogance. It seems to be arrogant, and once they start talking to him, they realize that he was an extremely polite person. and didn't know if he should be feel lucky to have and show emotion like when he yelled at him because he never yelled, not at one. He would just whisper informed at something he didn't like. He never yelled. Jungkook helped him with his school assignments, and even though sometimes he had difficulty in understand, they both were ignored in the past 1 month with that sort topics or brother, once ex-fiancé. Not even once he did discuss it. They didn't think that they would any needed to. They didn't know how he would react if he brought up the topic because he seems to get annoyed over small things. So they avoid the topic and didn't have any desire to discuss his ex-fiancé, which is husband. They at least know it was wrong. No husband, like when his wife talk about any other man. They can't pinpoint that personally. He couldn't discuss it to anyone. So when Invo, his best friend, asks about his husband, he don't know how to explain it to him. So, when did I get to meet him? Asked Invo while they walked toward the exit. Invo had his own car, so he drove through. They didn't. Jungkook family will picked him and daily dropped him too. I don't know. They shrugged. Jungkook would not like to meet his friend, no matter how good he was. He was still just. But why? Can't I at least see him? His photo? He found. Invo understood why they were so. And understood. He couldn't do that. Jungkook was a rich person, young, handsome, and owner of a family business. It wasn't surprising that he was famous. The reason why Jungkook was a CEO. And that he was the eldest son. He was 2 years older than Jungkook. So his father handed him the company. Seriously, you could have told me that. He was a celebrity. I sometimes think I'm not even your best friend. He crossed his arm over his chest and formed. I told you he was rich, but he didn't tell you that he's my ex-fiancé brother. They wanted to add, but stopped himself. Okay, I promise I will introduce you to him as soon as possible. He smiled, and his friend rolled his eyes. Fine, whatever. Invo sighed and noticed his friends had frozen and his eyes were fixed on a certain spot. Suddenly Invo whistled and raised an eyebrows. They formed and followed the direction and stopped himself for gasping. What the hell is he doing here? Suddenly they felt nervous and didn't know how to act. Oh God, why did he have to show up just like that? He pinched his eyes closed and opened them again to see he was not illusion. It was there. They hummed and gasped on. His worry grew even more. Did he really have to tell everyone that he was his husband? They liked to keep it in the way a secret. He didn't want any fan following of Jungkook trying to be fans. Just because he knew. What the? Invo asked. He was confused and why the man was standing like a boss, resting his body against his car. He seems to be waiting for someone. Of course it would be his. That was new. Well, the damage had been done, so he didn't need to make a move. But everyone started gathering around him. I'll call you later, he told Unwo, but he opened his mouth to protest. But then they was already in the middle of the road. Tae, where are you going? Unwo yelled behind him, and being extremely reckless, they turned around to face his friend, and a car almost hit him.